from the rap artists and the hip hop. And then switch to a video and show a brother, these three rappers singing, and one of them, you know, holding his crotch, which I talked about earlier, like how much that is prevalent. You know, we even got the women holding their crotch in the videos. Watch Eve and Lil' Kim. What they grabbing? You know, and what message does that send? And from an anthropological standpoint, if you look at just basic human nature, the only reason why people go and grab themselves there is that they got an illness, disease, you know what I'm saying? Something's wrong, or they're insecure and they need protection. So that's why in my book, one of the few books you will find that actually address that question. Why are so many of our men grabbing their crotches? So that's what I would recommend. Sorry, Mark.
I had a question. I came in late, but because blacks, African Americans have been migrating, converged all over the world, there's black Cubans, I'm saying everywhere. Why? How can you be defined by one culture and kind of neglect all your other surroundings? Because if you're black, you're of the world.
Right.
You're everywhere. But I'm saying, so like if you're in America, I'm an advertising major, and so you learn stuff about pop culture, shorthand, and how they get stereotypes to describe a race and so forth.
Right.
So how do you know that what's going across now isn't just their culture of what they're trying to say everybody do, or it's just a smack in the face to blacks?
What I think two things about this. One is that we got to. I'm sorry.
We didn't hear the question.
Why? Because of pop culture and shorthand that puts
stand up, bro.
All over the world. We've migrated and been part of every single culture. We are of every culture. So what we see on TV here is a form of shorthand and stereotypes, because they use those stereotypes so like you'll know somebody. You can use a stereotype, oh, he's sagging, someone automatically think black. Or if they have nappy hair, oh, they automatically think black. They use that as a form of shorthand. So I'm saying because they call it's part of culture, pop culture, now how do you know what they're doing isn't just a smack in the face to blacks, or because people are just going around and letting it be accepted?
That's a tough one, right? What I feel is crucial for us is that part of the thing about slavery was to make us no longer producers but consumers. And so if we raise our children and when we go out the door, when we look at TV, if we remember that basic theme, that the goal is to make us consumers, then we will look at things differently. The other thing is that it's critical that you know your history, because y'all understand this very clearly. History does repeat itself.
Yes.
And see, unfortunately, we only know maybe about 10,000 years of history at the most. I'm pushing it as far as what is currently accepted. But clearly, there's a cycle to life. There's a cycle to history. And if you don't know history, then you won't see it coming. It's just like a punch out of the side that you won't see coming. But if you know the history, you can recognize the signs when things are about to happen again. So it's critical for us to know our history so we can put all this in the proper context and see the big picture. Because so much of what happens with us now, and there's a movie that we just watched that just blew my mind. I gotta strongly suggest y'all see this movie called Bowling for Columbine.
Yeah.
Y'all got to look at this movie, man, because it's like, it really shows.
It's on videotape. You can get it on videotape.
And what is happening in our culture, in American culture, is that they make us so fearful and stressed out that all we want to do is consume things, get comfort food, buy something, do something, from the standpoint, it also stresses out to the point where we're far more violent. This blew my mind. I mean, from the standpoint of this supposed to be a civilized nation, and yet, like in Canada, it was showing it was like 200 murders all of last year. We had over 11,000, and they got just as many guns, they got just as much cultural diversity, they got more unemployment, but they got 200 murders, and we got over 11,000. So that's what we have to kind of step back, because a lot of times Americans think, even black Americans, that, well, you wouldn't want to live nowhere else. Ain't nowhere like America, and they never been nowhere. And it's like, it just clings to that thought. But that's why it's important for us to travel. It's important for us to go to countries. Yeah, you got to go to places where your people are doing well. And see and take your children places where black people are running everything, so they can see that you don't have to be dependent on another culture to make your millions.
I have a quick comment and then about traveling overseas and whatnot, and then also a question. I am, my mother is German and black, and my father is African American, he's black. So I have in me about a quarter or so German, okay? Of course, you cannot tell, because my daddy's just that black, okay? Which I just love him. But I travel, I'm in the military also, and so I traveled over to Germany on my way to Kuwait. And we were getting ready to go downtown while we were waiting overnight to go into one of the pubs. And of course, and it blew my mind that this even occurred, being overseas, because I've heard such good things about, you know, Nina Simone left and went to Europe. You know, I've heard all these different, you know, different people, African Americans who have. I get over and I'm trying to get into one of the pubs, and they said it was like 4 blacks in our group, and then like an Asian young lady and like 2 white cats. So, white people, sorry. So I'm going in and they say, oh no, you all can't come in. You can come in, but you can. And I'm thinking now I have more German in me than you know these white people who I'm with. And so that it's just obvious. It was because I was black.
1 ounce of blood makes me black.
1 ounce of black blood, exactly. And I told him that, and I was like, but you know, you don't even know. Why can't we come in? You just can't come in. And I was like, okay, so we just went down the street and, you know, kicked it up somewhere else. Yeah. But moving on, I do have a question about, okay, say for instance, I'm a comedy fiend. I love to laugh and do believe in satire. Okay, unfortunately, that satire, say in Hollywood, does oftentimes come off as a little abrasive to our community. So for instance, the most recent example is Bringing Down the House. So hilarious. I'm sorry, I liked it, but there are a lot of. How do you? I just wanted to hear from you, from those of you in this room. How do you feel about using our stereotypes that are used toward us as a form of satire, or you know, in movies or whatnot? How do you all feel about that?
I hated it. I saw it and I absolutely hated
really?
it.
See, and I
I'm
use that a lot.
64 years old, and it's a stereotype of a black woman, making her look like a buffoon and all. That stuff goes, once it plays in the United States, it goes all over the world. And the people who don't know anything else about us, no, listen to me. People who don't know anything else about us see Queen Latifah acting like a fool. When you go to that country, that's why you can't get in.
But it's just not, just like you said, the lower we are, you know, economically or whatnot, the big hair, the blue nails, that's what we're doing now.
But
unfortunately,